Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel Swamy Vijay, and this is Swamy Vijay speaking to you all. These are the videos under the series of Pgt Tgt English literature for KVS and NVS examinations. So in this class I am going to explain the Macbeth written by William Shakespeare. If you had watched the previous videos, you would have understood we have started periods of English literature, and then we completed the Old English period, Middle English period, and then we have come to the early modern or Renaissance. After Renaissance, we are going for the next period. But under Renaissance, we have completed the Elizabethan period, and now we are going to move to the Jacobean period. But before Elizabeth period and Jacobean period, we are discussing one of the greatest playwrights, William Shakespeare. In the previous class, we completed William Shakespeare's Hamlet, and in this class, I am going to discuss Macbeth. Now, we are going to apply the Shakespearean tragedy features propounded by A.C. Bradley. So now if you see the same here, Shakespearean tragedy features noble birth. Even in Macbeth also, he is also from a noble family or a royal family. He is not an ordinary person. Macbeth won a major battle, already is a Thane of Glamis and is about to become Thane of Cawdor, which are positions of nobility. So the central character or the main character or the protagonist of the play is a from noble birth. And then tragic hero is a Macbeth. And what had he fallen? Third point is heights of glory to depths of degradation. The downfall of Macbeth is due to his greed for power, witches, self-fulfilling prophecies, and the pressure from Lady Macbeth. The greed for power is a major role in the downfall of Macbeth. So it is overwhelming ambition is a tragic flaw which made Macbeth to fall from the heights of the glory to the depths of the degradation to become turn into a murderer. And now what is the tragic flaw in this Shakespearean tragedy, Macbeth? Tragic flaw can also be called as hamartia or hubris, and here Macbeth has vaulting ambition. What is this vaulting ambition? Unchecked ambition and unabated desire for power and position, namely to be king. Though he is from a royal family, though he is a noble person, but he wanted to become the king of the Scotland. Namely to be king, which is more important to him than anything else in his life. So he's a power monger. He wanted to have power in his hands. He is willing to give up everything that he has in his life in order to possess the crown to sit on the throne. So his life's ambition is he wants to become the king of the Scotland. Now if you see the right side, we have the Macbeth's character map or mind map of Macbeth, and let us understand the relation between the characters. So Macbeth is a central character of this play written by Shakespeare. He is a great warrior, later king of Scotland. We'll come to know how he had become the king of the Scotland. Then very famous character in English literature is his wife, Lady Macbeth. She is more ambitious than Macbeth. So Macbeth's wife, and she is a co-conspirator. Then who is the king of that Scotland before Macbeth became the king of Scotland is Duncan. So he is the king of Scotland and Macbeth killed Duncan. Okay, then who is this another character? Banquo. He is a warrior and Macbeth's friend. So when they were returning from the warfield, Macbeth and Banquo were traveling to the kingdom. So Banquo was his friend and he is a warrior. Then we have three witches in the story that when I explain act wise, you will come to know who are those three witches. And Banquo's son is the Fleance. Banquo's son, father to later Scottish kings. There is a descendant, James I is connected to Banquo, that will explain or you will come to know after watching this video. Then if you come to this side, you can see the doctor is a minor character. He was called by Lady Macbeth's gentlewoman. And then we have Lady Madcuff and son. So Madcuff was Thane of Scotland and he is the right heir to the kingdom after Duncan. And he has wife Lady Macduff and son. And Duncan Duncan has two sons. One is Donalbain and the another one is Malcolm. Okay, and how this Madcuff is related to Malcolm? Madcuff is related to joins forces against Macbeth. So Macbeth and Madcuff are the one who fought at the end of the story that you will come to know once I start explaining. Then there are few more characters are there: Lennox, Ross, Menteith, Agnes, Thanes, who eventually turned against Macbeth. Now let us go to the next characteristic features of Shakespearean tragedy. So there is a conflict in within and without. Okay, so that means I'll just send a message. Okay, so there is a conflict even in Macbeth also, whether he want to become the king of the Scotland by killing the Duncan or not to kill. So there is a conflict going on inside, and there is a conflict outside with his fellow competitors. Okay, then internal conflict is there, external conflict is also we can observe in this Shakespearean tragedy Macbeth. Then the supernatural elements are also being used in this Macbeth. So the ghost appearance, in the later part of the story you'll come to know that when he killed of Banquo, then Banquo's ghost was found in the banquet hall when Macbeth went for dinner. So supernatural elements like Macbeth, ghost appearance, lot of floating dogger, witches and prophetic apparitions. So three apparitions: a severed head, a bloody child and a royal child holding a tree. So these are the three apparitions, are three witches. So these three witches and the ghost appearance comes under supernatural elements, and these supernatural elements we call in any play machinery, or even in epic also we call machinery. Then we have comic relief in this Macbeth play, that is Potter scene, and then sympathy because tragic hero is Macbeth. How he has become the tragic hero, because Macbeth wanted to become the king of the Scotland, and not in a rightful way, not in a right way. So he killed Duncan, but before killing Duncan and after killing Duncan also he was not happy. Okay, then another feature in this Macbeth play is soliloquies. So even Macbeth also has very famous soliloquies like Hamlet, and we have one famous soliloquies, tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. It is found in Act 5 and Scene 5. Then we have Macbeth, Scotland, source. So the source for Shakespeare to write this Macbeth is Holinshed Chronicles, written to show and please James I. So this James I is actually Jacobean king, James I. He is a direct descendant of Banquo. So we'll come to know about all those things. Okay, now let us go to the next slide. Now I am going to explain the story of Macbeth. Now what is this Macbeth? It is a tragedy. The full title of Macbeth is The Tragedy of Macbeth, and it was first performed in 1606. Then the source of this play is Raphael Holinshed Chronicles, is the source for Shakespeare. Then the play indicates Shakespeare's great relationship with King James I. So King James I is believed to be the descendants of Banquo. Okay. Then Macbeth was believed to be cursed play. Taking the name of the play resulted in accident. So whoever performed or whoever talks about this Macbeth play, that resulted in so many accidents, so people called it as the Scottish play. Okay, remember this one. Macbeth is the shortest tragedy of Shakespeare, and it is also known as the Scottish play. Then we'll revise quickly the characters found in this play. Macbeth, a Scottish general in the army of King Duncan. So he is under King Duncan. He is a general, and he has titles Thane of Glamis and Thane of Cawdor. Later he became the king of Scotland by killing the King Duncan, who is the king of the Scotland that time. Then we have one more very famous character in English literature, that is Lady Macbeth, wife of Macbeth, later Queen of Scotland. Then Duncan is the king of Scotland when Macbeth killed him. Then Malcolm is the elder son of King Duncan, and Donalbain is another son of King Duncan. So these two flee from the Scotland when the murder was brought to their notice. Then we have Banquo, Macbeth's friend, a general in the army of King Duncan, and Fleance is the son of Banquo and Madcoff Thane of Fife. And we have three witches, and then Hecate is the queen of the witches. Then Rose and Agnes are the Scottish generals. Now let us understand this story precisely. Without taking much time, I'll try to explain this story. This Macbeth story is divided into 5 acts. So the play begins with 3 witches talking to each other in thunderstorm. They want to meet Macbeth after the battle. So Macbeth and Banquo were coming after defeating the Scottish rebels. And when they were traveling to their kingdom, Scotland, these 3 witches wanted to meet Macbeth, and they want to tell them tell him one prophecy. So then when this news reached King Duncan that Macbeth and Banquo defeated the Scottish rebels, then he becomes so happy and he decides to give the title of Thane of Cawdor to Macbeth. So Duncan decides to give him. But what happened when Banquo and Macbeth met these three witches? Macbeth and Duncan are horrified at the sight of the witches. The witches call Macbeth Thane of Glamis and Thane of Cawdor. So before Duncan bestowed the title of Thane of Cawdor, these three witches called or addressed Macbeth as Thane of Cawdor, and they foretold the prophecy to uh, Macbeth that the witches predicted Macbeth will become the king of Scotland, and the witches also say that Banquo's children and descendants will become the future kings of Scotland. After listening to the witches' prophecy, Macbeth was confused, but he was very happy because he wanted to become the king of Scotland, and if the prophecy turns true, then he will be with overjoyed. At the same time, what happened? The Rose and Agnes come to Macbeth and Banquo, and they addressed Macbeth like Thane of Cawdor, and they told that Duncan had made him Thane of Cawdor. And after listening to this, Macbeth was wondered how come the prophecy of the witches come true, and he started believing that even the prophecy of witches that he would become king of Scotland one day will also become true. So Macbeth wonders about the prophecy of the witches, but when he discussed these things with Banquo, Banquo says that the devil often tell half truths to harm humans, so we should not believe in the witches. But inside, Macbeth was thinking about the prophecy or the future told by the witches. And he was also thinking that who will become actually the future king. Of course, Macbeth may become future kings, but Banquo's children, sons will become the rulers of the Scotland. So he returned to Scotland, and King Duncan praises Macbeth for his bravery. The king declares that his son Malcolm will be the future king. So now the blow is, after this victory, what happened? The King Duncan declares that his son Malcolm will be the future king. Now Macbeth landed into confusion because according to the witches, he has to become the king of the Scotland. But when Malcolm was decided as the king of the Scotland by Duncan, now he got confused. King Duncan says that he will visit Macbeth's castle for dinner in the evening. So because Macbeth and Banquo, they fought and they suppressed the rebels of Scotland. So he wanted to go to Macbeth's castle and to have dinner. So when Lady Macbeth came to know about the prophecy, and she planned to kill Duncan. So Lady Macbeth is a very, very vicious character in the entire English literature. She tells Macbeth the plan. What is the plan made by Lady Macbeth? While the king sleeps, after having dinner, when the king starts sleeping, she will give wine to his servants to make them drunk. Then she and Macbeth will slip in and murder the king. So they will murder the king when he was sleeping. At the same time, she will give drinks or wine or alcohol to the servants. And then what will happen? Once they successfully kill Duncan, they will also kill the soldiers, so that what will happen? Whoever sees the scene, they will understand that the soldiers of Duncan killed Duncan, and Macbeth killed the soldiers after finding that these soldiers killed Duncan. So this was her plan. Now then they will smear the blood of the king on the sleeping servants, so that it looks the servants have murdered the king. Macbeth likes the plan and agrees to murder king. So he was actually insulted and provoked by Lady Macbeth to do this act. Macbeth kills King Duncan when he was sleeping, and his hands are covered in blood. Lady Macbeth takes the dagger into the room and keep it with the sleeping servants. Her hands are also covered in blood. When Macbeth was not having that confidence or courage to kill Duncan, even Lady Macbeth took the dagger and tried to stab, but she could not do that act because Duncan's face resembles her father. So Macbeth only killed Duncan. After that, what they did, Lady Macbeth takes the dagger into the room and keep it with the sleeping servants. Her hands are also covered in blood. Then later Macbeth meets Macduff. Macduff discovers the dead body of king, and he suspected something wrong in this entire act. Macduff is suspicious of King Duncan's murderer that everyone believes the servants committed. Then what happened? They realized that it was Duncan was murdered by Macbeth. So King Duncan's sons Malcolm and Donalbain flee from Scotland as they feel they are in danger. They understood that Macbeth even will kill these boys also. As there is no heir, Macbeth becomes the new king of England. So according to the prophecy of the three witches, now Macbeth became the king of the Scotland. But he has the doubt, okay, I may become the king of the Scotland, but the future generations are from the Duncan's family. So he wanted to kill even Duncan. After becoming the king of Scotland, Macbeth along with Lady Macbeth invites Banquo to attend the feast that night. So you want to even murder? Macbeth arranges murderers to kill Banquo and his son Fleance, but Banquo is killed, but his son Fleance escapes. So when he killed Banquo successfully, he wanted to even kill his son. But when Macbeth goes to attend the feast, he sees Banquo's ghost sitting on his chair. So that is ghost appearance, that is a supernatural element used by Shakespeare. And when he sees the Banquo's ghost, horrified, Macbeth speaks to the ghost who is invisible to the rest of the people. The Banquo's ghost is only visible to Macbeth, nobody else can see. So when Macbeth was talking to the Banquo's ghost, everybody felt something is wrong with Macbeth. He's the king of the Scotland. Then Lady Macbeth covers that. Lady Macbeth makes excuse for her husband's absurd behavior by saying that Macbeth has occasional visions. Then Macbeth again wanted to visit the witches to know about his future. He wanted to know whether his generation or his sons will become the rulers of Scotland, or the Banquo's sons will become the rulers of the Scotland. Then what happened when he met, or before he met these three witches? The three witches met Hecate. This is examination point of view important. Hecate is the leader or the person who is controlling these three witches, the queen of the witches. So the three witches met Hecate, the queen of witches, who scolded them for interfering in Macbeth's life. And Hecate tells the witches to give Macbeth a false sense of security when he visits them. So that is another plan. Then in Act 4, what happens? Macbeth meets the witches to know his future. The witches tell Macbeth to be careful about Macduff. So they told that no need to worry, only how to be careful with Macduff, and your death will come in this way. The witches predict that no one who is born of a woman can kill Macbeth. Then it is too difficult to predict and understand how come a person born without from the mother's womb. So he felt very happy. The witches also predict that Macbeth is safe until Birnam Wood moves to the Dunshire. So Dunshire is a place where Macbeth castle. So Macbeth was very happy that these things would never happen in his life. So he was not going to die or killed by anybody. Then Macbeth sends murderers to kill Macduff's wife and children. So he want to eradicate even Macduff also. Then Macduff joins hands with Malcolm. They arrange an army of 10,000 soldiers against Macbeth. And in the meanwhile, what happened before the battle begin? Lady Macbeth, now we are moving to the Act 5. Lady Macbeth is suffering from sleepwalking, insomnia. She can see blood on her hands that water cannot wash off. She is sleeping into madness due to her guilt. So she lost her mind. She was haunted by the guilt or the crime which she had committed. Later, she kills herself before the battle begins. So she commits suicide. Then when battle begins, Malcolm tells the soldier to cut down a tree of the Birnam forest and carry it in front of them as they march to Dunshire Castle. So that prophecy you can understand. The three witches told, unless the Birnam forest come to Dunshire, how come we believe that a forest can move? But these soldiers, they cut the trees and they covered themselves behind those Birnam forest trees, and they have moved to the Dunshire Castle. Macbeth learns that the trees of Birnam Wood are walking towards Dunshire. He is terrified as he recalls the prophecy of witches. So he understood that whatever the prophecy told by the three witches is coming to true. But Macbeth meets Macduff in the battle, but he didn't want to surrender. When Macbeth tells Macduff that no man born of woman can kill him, Macduff says that he was untimely ripped off his mother's womb. So he's believed that nobody can kill him, because how come somebody born from not from the mother's womb, then natural birth? Then he says that Macduff says that he was born with a cesarean. Macduff is terrified but does not surrender. Then finally what happened in the battle between Macduff and Macbeth? Macduff beheads Macbeth, and Malcolm becomes the new king of Scotland. Who is Malcolm? The son of the Banquo. So later in the history, Banquo's descendants, who was killed by Macbeth, descendants become the kings. In fact, King James I Jacobean one, was believed to be a descendant of Banquo. So this is the entire story of Macbeth, and in this story we have to understand few things which are examination point of view are very important. What is the who is the noble birth, who is the tragic hero, how he had fallen, what is the tragic flaw, and what is the conflict within and conflict without, and what are the supernatural elements being used in this play Macbeth by Shakespeare, what is the comic relief scene in this Macbeth, and why and how the sympathy was erased by Macbeth, and what are the important soliloquies. And few important comments given on Macbeth. Macbeth is a Scotland source of Macbeth writing for Shakespeare is Holinshed Chronicles, written and to show please James I. So James I is a direct descendant of Banquo. How many children had Lady Macbeth is the one who has written Elsie Knights. On the Knocking at the Gate of Macbeth is an essay written by Thomas De Quincey. So if you know the story of Macbeth, of course you may get good knowledge, but you have to practice the examination point of view questions after reading or watching this video. So after completion of this video, you have to practice the MCQ questions which are important in examination point of view. So this is the entire story or summary of Macbeth written by William Shakespeare, and it is the shortest play or tragedy written by William Shakespeare, and it was published in or first performed in 1606, and the source of this play is Raphael Holinshed Chronicles. Okay, so this is about the William Shakespeare's one of the greatest tragedies and shortest tragedy, Macbeth. So thanks for watching this video. If you like this video, please subscribe to my channel so that you can receive latest updates information the moment I upload videos on YouTube. Bye bye, take care.